Hi everyone. I'm coming to you from the American Educational Research Association meetings in Chicago. I'm overlooking the river here and just have a beautiful sight, and I'm seeing a lot of really interesting work here at the conference. So um, it's it's really great, and I'm going to share it with you guys as much as I can. Now, what I want to do today is to talk about the tutoring part of our course. So far, you guys have done a great job. Most of you, it seems, have been able to identify someone to tutor, which is really excellent, and that's a big step already. Now, the tutoring component is going to be structured. I have ideas for different things you can do in different parts of your tutoring session, but it's also flexible. So, depending upon what your student needs and what your student desires, you can design your sessions for yourself. I'm here to help provide resources whenever I can and ideas. Let me start with a basic overview of the tutorial assignment. So if you go to assignments in our course and you click on the tutorial report, here you can see a general description of the tutorial assignment. So I'm going to open that up. So for this assignment, you're going to tutor one second language learner of English in reading. You must identify a learner of English who specifically needs assistance or support in his or her reading. You can work on other things in the session if you want, but we're focusing primarily on reading and things that are closely related to reading. You're going to assess the learner. So before you meet with your learner for the first time, you should probably look at our assessment plan assignment as well. And I'm going to provide, again, resources and things like that in the modules. So before you start, take a look at all of these things and let me know what you need. Please complete part one before the first tutorial session. So the very first part of the tutorial report you can already start filling out if you know who your tutee is. So the first part is just a description of the teaching context and standards. Now this just relates to what kind of learner is this? What kind of English learning situation is your learner currently engaged in? And what would be the standards associated with that? So for example, if you're tutoring someone in California, who's in the K-12 context, then Common Core and the ELD standards are those that are most relevant to your learner. And also just the idea of like what grade level are they at? So if it's a fourth grade learner who's a beginning English language learner, then the fourth grade Common Core standards are relevant, as well as the ELD standards for a beginner learner, okay? So you want to look at those different things. Now, so you're just describing that, what type of learner, what type of program, if any, and then the goals of the, or standards related to that learner. Usually in an IEP, they are going to have curricular goals. So rather than specific standards, a lot of intensive English programs have goals for their curriculum, so you might want to ask about the curricular goals for that curriculum. And also just thinking about the learner's goals. So in the Blackboard site, there's a confirmation of permission to complete the tutoring service. You're going to get that. You want permission not only from the student but also from the teacher or program if you're tutoring someone at their program or if you contacted someone through a particular program. So what I need is just confirmation that you're actually tutoring someone and you have permission to tutor them. If you're tutoring an adult, they'll just sign it for you. So again, identifying the set of relevant standards, if there are any, or curricular goals. I have some links on the Blackboard site right here. You can see here's some English language standards that are some examples of choices. So here's TESOL's Pre-K to 12 English Language Proficiency Standards. You might want to look at those even if it says they're not to be used for learners in the U.S. So U.S. states have their own particular standards they're following, but these could help you in the international K through 12 setting, where if you're you can look at the proficiency levels of your learners, and even for adult learners it might help because they're going to be at different proficiency levels of English. The CASAS reading standards are related to adult education, not ELs in particular, but you can look at those and see if some of those, if they're in adult education. Here's Common Core standards and the California English Language Arts standards. It looks like I need to put the ELD standards up there as well. Okay, getting back to the assignment. So the first part is really just talking about the context in which you're tutoring and the context in which your learner is studying. Now, on your first meeting of the learner, you're going to gather information about him or her by speaking with, well, I don't know if you'll have a chance to speak with the teacher in the program. If you do, that's great to find out what they are trying to do with the learner, or their goals for what's going to happen with this learner. And just describe something about the learner: age, grade, what previous L2 learning experience do they have. So in other words, how much experience do they have learning English? Are they a newcomer? Have they been in the U.S. for a long time? Is this in a foreign context, and how much language learning experience do they have? And various other things. We've been reading about learners and what we need to know about them. So what do you think is relevant about this learner in order to understand their needs? Now, in the first session, you're also going to conduct some kind of assessment, and you're mainly going to talk about this in your assessment plan, which is a different assignment. So looking at the assessment, you're going to have to go to the assessment plan and our module on assessment to get more information about this. But here in this first part, what you're just going to describe what you did to try to understand the learner's level and how well the learner reads, and other information about what they need to work on. If our assessment plan isn't helpful enough, then I can help you identify more assessments or more relevant assessments for your particular case. Okay, so that is basically part one of the assignment. After you've completed these kind of preliminary steps, identifying things about your learner and what they need to work on, then you'll move into the 5 tutorial sessions where you're going to implement these things that you want to work on. As we go through our modules, you may want to apply the things that we're learning in the module, but it kind of depends on your student and what they need. So that's one thing, is there's going to be specific things from our course that are relevant to your particular 2T. And the other thing is your 2T, even within a session, when you plan your session, a lot of times what happens with tutorials is you need to be flexible. So even within that session, it might not work out the way that you thought it was going to, or it could be that your 2T wants to spend a lot of time on one particular thing that you planned and not another. And so I understand that that is completely that's one of the main things about tutorials. They're very flexible. You need to be able to shift and change your ideas, and it usually just, it's not a plan that you're sort of forcing on the student. You have a general idea and materials for what you want to work on, and you get there and you just try to be really flexible and work with the student and see where it goes. That's why we have here in these blogs, what you're going to talk about is what you plan to do and what actually happened. and then reflecting on how that went, what you think about that, how was that a good thing that it went in that direction, or do you need to do something differently in the future? What did you learn teaching about teaching reading from that? And then I want you to try to apply this experience to what we're learning in the class. So after you reflect just generally on the session, I want to hear what's going on with how this relates to our particular course and what we're learning in the course. Um, if you're not sure, if it doesn't seem to, then maybe the thing that it relates to is going to come up later, and you can mention it in a future blog. Or you can come back to the blog and revise your blog after you read about the thing later. So it kind of depends what happened and whether we've covered that yet in class. But I can definitely, when I see what kinds of things you're talking about and wondering about, in my comments to you, I can point you in particular directions. So this is an opportunity for me to see what's going on in your tutorial sessions so I can give you feedback and provide guidance in that direction. And also it's for you guys to see what the other people are doing and to get ideas and to provide your fellow students advice or resources. So when you respond to your fellow students, you're going to um, give them new ideas and substantive feedback as well as me doing that. Okay, at the end of all of the sessions, you're going to reflect on your tutorial experience and just talking about things like what you learned and how the overall experience helped you to learn about teaching, how you feel about teaching reading based on this experience. What things were reinforced for you from our course, and what things do you feel like you need further information about or further learning? What would be your goals for yourself as a teacher in order to improve even further? So those are the reflections on your tutorial experience. Okay, so going back here to our course website, the blog is located right here. So what you're going to see is I'm going to set up blogs for each session. This blog that I have so far is the preliminary session. So you're going to click on here and you're going to create a blog entry. Okay, give it a title, so your name and something about your 2T. So let's say kindergarten reader or something like that. And here's where you type your entry in. Right here, type here. And you can add things. You can, when you click on here, you get a bunch of tools to help edit your blog. So this thing gives you all these tools with cutting, various things. You can add audio, pictures, video, mashups. So you can play around with your blog, but the main thing that I'm looking for are those 3 components of the blog. For the preliminary, no. The preliminary one is specific. It's just more of a general overview of your experience meeting your student for the first time. But when you get into those main sessions, then there is that specific set of expectations for that. And so your blog entry will show up here, and I will give you comments on it. Now when you go to read each other's blog entries, there isn't one yet, but you'll be able to click on a little button that says comment, and then you can give your classmates advice and resources. I'm almost out of time for this screencast. They're only allowed to be 15 minutes, but I am going to provide further guidance in the form of a massive website where there's going to be tons of resources and materials for you guys and for your tutorial sessions. So you should also look at the assessment assignment and the assessment module for ideas on what kind of assessments to carry out.